motivating employees to drive more revenue. Well, joining us to speak about that today is Beth Carroll, principal of Prosperio Group. Beth, welcome.
Thank you, Russell.
I'd like to turn to mistakes, if we could. If I were to ask you, what is the number one mistake that companies make in their compensation incentive packages? I suppose that implies that there are a number of mistakes,
Yes.
But the number one would be what?
Well, there are a number of mistakes. And I'd say some of the common things that we see are they don't think of it as part of a holistic system. They aren't aligning the incentive plan to the role. They're paying transactionally and expecting to get growth. They're not using goals. But really the number one thing that we see is that they don't own it. They don't take it seriously enough. And what I mean by that is management thinks sometimes that they can just find somebody else's incentive plan or read a book and put in an incentive plan that way, and it should just be this magic thing that just works, and they never have to pay any attention to it ever again. That's not how incentive programs work. Management has to really own their incentive plan, really understand it, really know that it is custom tailored to their organization and is doing exactly what they want it to do. And then they also need to work it. And by that I mean they have to communicate to their employees, they have to reinforce it, they have to give them a way to see how they're doing relative to their goals and coach them on how they can improve. A good incentive plan should be paying out well for the employees, and management should be happy when it does, because that means they're hitting their goals as well. So it needs to become this win-win situation that management is actually actively working to help their employees make more money.
You know, I want to follow up on that actually for just a moment. And let me play the role of contrarian. When someone says you've got to own it, you know, sometimes that sounds like a kind of business speak or leadership speak or motivation speak. But you're suggesting to me that this is a real issue here. If people are not buying into this, this is going to definitely affect bottom line. Do you have an example of that?
We've worked with over 67 transportation logistics companies specifically designing their incentive plans, over 130 companies total across all industries, and there's a direct correlation. I could plot it on an XY axis in terms of the way management is involved in the incentive plan development and implementation, and the success of that program in terms of helping them achieve their goals. The ones that are not involved, they can't be bothered to sit through the meetings. They don't really understand why we picked one measure over another measure or how the mechanics are supposed to work. Those are the places where it falls down. Sometimes leadership feels like they're too busy, they're too important, they can't go through these meetings, but then at the end, they want to change things and they don't understand that there were some critical trade-off decisions that were made along the way, and you can't just change it at the end and expect it to work.
No, in the end, I'm hearing that they're going to pay for that mistake
Yes.
of not having sat in and participated in that very important
Yes,
discussion.
they pay big time. The ones that really get deeply involved, there's one broker that's attached to a large trucking company that I've worked with, where the manager was very deeply involved in the process all the way through to the point where when we were actually rolling out the plans, he actually listened to me do the rollout for the first two rollouts and then said, Beth, I got it from here. And then he started communicating the plans. That company has quadrupled in size in the 2 years that they've had our incentive plans in place.
Well, let's turn to another subject, and that would be sources of revenue growth. What are the two primary sources that companies can tap in their incentive plan?
This really isn't rocket science. It's new customers and existing customers, right? So basically you can try to bring in brand new customers and get revenue from them, or the easier way actually, and the place you should always start, is your existing customer base and how can you expansion sell within your existing customer base by looking for their new services, new products. We often in the transportation world, we're talking about new lanes and locations, you know, are there new things that you can offer them that they're not currently buying?
You know, when you say this is not rocket science, that implies to me that this is something that people should know, but for some reason they tend to overlook that because they're looking for something else. It's got to be more complicated or more complex or more sophisticated than that. Is that a problem?
Well, yes, because what we see a lot is that companies put in an incentive plan that really is based just on like gross margin or revenue. It's very one-dimensional. very singularly focused. And that really doesn't capture the full breadth of what their strategic priorities are. If you're just paying a salesperson to go bring you revenue, well, what kind of revenue? I mean, not all customers are going to be adequate to your business. So you need to make sure that you're really looking at who are going to be the good new customers that you're going to want to cultivate and develop into longer term relationships, and what customers maybe do you have already that you actually should be getting rid of. And you don't want to pay a sales rep for going and selling more to those customers, because you should be getting rid of that relationship.
All right, I want to incentivize then my employees, to tap into these two primary sources here. So give me a laundry list if there is one. I mean, what do I do to point them in the direction and turn them on and make them do that very thing?
Well, there's two things that come to mind. If you really want to go after new customers, one of the best incentive methods to use is what we call a bounty. Okay, so obviously you can pay somebody for revenue generation. But that tends to be very all-encompassing, whether it's a new customer or existing customer. But if you really want to focus in on a new customer, then you want to set something where you say, okay, when a new customer gets us X number of loads or X number of dollars in revenue, it hits that threshold point, then we're going to pay you $1,000 for getting that new customer, or whatever the right dollar amount should be. But it's a one-time payout, in addition to whatever credit they are getting under their core part of their incentive program, that's the revenue piece or whatever. So for that work, that initial bit of work for that customer, we are consciously double paying for that, because we want them to be going out and getting new customers. They only get it one time, but they can get as many bounties as they want. It's typically uncapped, so that they can go out and land 50 new customers and make $50,000 on their bounty. For existing customers, we tend to look at a scorecard kind of approach. Or you can also do a bounty there as well. You can do a bounty on new lanes or locations or some expansion. But typically when you're selling a portfolio of products or services, you want to look at how well penetrated those existing customers are. So think of it almost like a bingo scorecard. You want them to be filling in all of those holes. And when they have a customer that's fully penetrated, they get some additional incentive for doing that. So it's really having them look at their account plan and saying, who do I need to sell what to? And I'm going to go fill in those holes and get all of our products sold into those customers.
If I come to you then and say, look, I need your help to get to drive more revenue in my company, what are you going to tell me? What is the advice that you're in the plan that you're going to set up for me?
Well, you've asked it in a perfect way, because I don't actually set up a plan for you.
Okay.
This is something that we would work collaboratively together on. It's not something that I have a shelf full of incentive plans. I've probably developed over 650 incentive plans in my 15 years of doing this, but not a single one of them is identical to another one, because it's something that's very custom tailored to the needs of your organization. So I spend time finding out what your business goals and objectives are, what your strategy is, how are you going to achieve those goals, oftentimes helping you clarify that thinking just by walking through the exercise of talking it out. Then we look at how your roles support those objectives. Which roles in your organization are going to go after the new customers? Which are going to go after the existing customers? Oftentimes it's not a good idea to have that same person doing both, because as the old saying goes, when you blend a hunter and a farmer, you get a farmer. People will fill up all of their day dealing with existing customer issues and leave new business acquisition to the end of the day, and so they never have time for that. So it's a very common complaint that my customers have, that they don't have enough new business acquisition activity. So first we look at roles. Can you get somebody to actually focus in on that as a core part of their role? Get the org chart defined so that it's really clear who has responsibility for what, and then we put in the incentive plan to support that.
Beth, I want to turn to another matter, and that's the importance of TMSA. I wonder if you could characterize then what the organization is all about, the benefit of that organization for somebody to belong to it.
TMSA is a wonderful organization, and it really is unique. There's nothing else that's out there like it. There are so many organizations for transportation and logistics and supply chain companies, but there's nobody that is focusing specifically on the sales and marketing function in those organizations. And so TMSA really provides valuable educational content specifically around how sales and marketing professionals can do their job better in the unique world that is the transportation industry. For me personally, TMSA is very valuable both as a vendor, and a lot of the companies here are my customers, but also for me as a business owner and marketer and salesperson, in that it forces me to think about what is my value proposition? How can I communicate what I bring to the table better so that companies can more fully understand what value they can get from hiring me? So TMSA is great from both standpoints.
I know that you also bring some value to TMSA since you are a board member as well.
Yes.
Beth, thank you so much. I know you're busy here at the conference, but you found time to sit down and speak with us, so thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Russell. Thank you.
Well, that's Beth Carroll, Prosperio Group, and talking with us today about motivating and incenting employees to drive revenue growth. Thank you for watching.